my bringing up in Hamlin, West Virginia, about my parents who lived in Hamlin, my family, Dad's family, some of the experiences I had as a young married man living at Midkiff, some of my school experiences. I just want to get them on tape. I recall things that happened when I was at the age of 6, living in Hamlin. My father, Grant Cremines, mother, Mary Frances Memble Cremines. My father came with his parents from Virginia to Glenwood, West Virginia. Dad has told me in the past that he had worked many a day in the Fraser Bottoms. Dad his father's name was Preston L. Cremines. I remember his mother's maiden name was Angel. I visited the Fairfield Church off from Glenwood, where many of his people have been buried. When Dad and Mother ran away to get married, they got their marriage license at Gallipolis, Ohio. One time on a trip on Route 7, Dad had me stop the automobile. He went into the courthouse at Gallipolis and got a copy of his marriage license. Dad was before the public most of his life. He was an elementary school teacher for 7 years. He was an attendant at a state institution. He was assistant assessor for Lincoln County. He was a member of the House of Delegates. He was also circuit clerk of Lincoln County for 18 straight years, 6 years to each term. He was so well liked that one term of 6 years, his party, the Republicans, didn't run anybody against him in the primary. The Democrats, knowing that they could not beat him, they did not offer an opponent for the general election. Dad was well liked by all who knew him. He did so much free work for the people. Many farmers, when they would be stripping their tobacco, knowing that Dad loved homemade, or what we call twist tobacco, they would twist him up 6 to 10 big twists of homemade tobacco. He didn't care too much for scrap tobacco. He chewed tobacco all of his life. Dad had something else about him that I never was able to do. If he met a man never had seen before, like today, if he got his name, he could meet this same man a year from this today in a strange town and call him by the first name. Dad was a Bible class teacher. He was an odd fella, and he worked himself up to the highest position in odd fella work in the state. He was Grand Warden of the Odd Fellows for 1 year. He visited every Odd Fellows lodge in the state of West Virginia during that year. Dad raised a family of 12 children, 9 boys and 3 girls. We lived in this little town of Hamlin, to start with, down in what we call the lower end. Hamlin is something like a 3-tier community. The lower end was the low class, people who didn't have much money. The second tier was a little better off, and in the upper tier was, if there were any rich people, they lived up there. We had some good schools in Lincoln County. I remember going to school at Hamlin Elementary as a young boy. There was one day that all of us kids looked forward to, and that was Barefoot Day. Mom would let all of us take our shoes off May the 1st and go barefooted. Just below where we lived was Mud River, small river coming out of the upper part of Lincoln County. We would go down there and go in swimming. Everybody wore some kind of shorts or some kind of a suit. But as I said, to start with, we lived in the lower end of Hamlin. Dad usually tried to keep 2 horses and a wagon, and in 1913 there was a flash flood in the upper part of Mud River, washed away several homes, flooded the lower end of Hamlin. The lower end of Hamlin was under about 3.5 feet of water. Our house was completely surrounded. Dad got his 2 horses hooked up to the wagon, rode around in front of the house, and waded over and carried the kids and Mom to the wagon. He walked in front of the horses. This was a narrow road with a big ditch on each side, but he walked in front and led the horses so they wouldn't get over into the ditch, and we went up to the Odd Fella building in the basement. Since he had a key for the building, he opened the building, the Odd Fella building, to us and anybody in the town of Hamlin that wanted to come and stay until the water went down. All they had to do was bring their blankets, bring something to eat, or everybody would share. His brother that lived with Dad most of his life, Uncle Otteridge, he said he wasn't going. So he went up into the upstairs and just looked out the window. But the lower end of Hamlin was completely covered with water. Many thousands of dollars worth of damage was done by this flash flood. Dad was a good-looking man. He was about 6'5½", weighed about 250 pounds, but at his death, suffering from diabetes, he probably didn't weigh more than 90 pounds at his death. Mom was one of the greatest mothers in the world, but she had some ways about her that I have often thought